Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Chorizo Rambles, a series where I will be rambling about whatever it is that I feel like rambling about, whether that's a movie or an album or a TV show or a video game. So because this is my first episode, I wanted to do something that is pretty unique, but also, play it safe, something that's not controversial at all whatsoever. So without further ado, I present to you my ramble on the Barbie movie. Few disclaimers before I start. So first of all, this ramble will include a lot of spoilers. So if you haven't seen the Barbie movie, then I suggest you click out of this video or not. You're free to do whatever you want, but there will be spoilers. Secondly, I did not like the Barbie movie, so this ramble is going to be about all of my issues with the movie. That being said though, this is my opinion and my opinion only, and just because I didn't like it, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't like it either, so please don't cancel me. I support women, I swear. Anyways, let's get into it. One of the biggest issues that I had with the Barbie movie is how disingenuous and performative its feminist message felt. But in order to talk about this, I feel that it's important to know a little bit of background on the director, which is Greta Gerwig. So Greta Gerwig is known for working on films that center around women, and for these movies having a lot of feminist undertones or commentary. And it was to be expected that the Barbie movie wasn't gonna be the exception. I mean, it's Barbie after all. You can't get more feminine than that. However, in this movie, Greta kind of felt short on her wittiness and her ability to make very meaningful commentary without being so in your face about it. Like one particular example that I can give is the monologue that America Ferrera gives towards the end of the movie when they're in the weird house. The whole you have to be thin but not too thin and you can't say that you want to be thin kind of monologue. To me, this statement didn't come off as empowering. It came off as cringy because this isn't something new, something creative. In fact, if you've seen the movie Gone Girl, you were probably sitting in the audience thinking, I've heard this somewhere before. Not only that, but if you spend some time online and have engaged with feminist discourse, then you've probably read a variation of that monologue very frequently. And so to me, this tells me that they really weren't interested in bringing any new discourse into feminism. They weren't interested in provoking the audience or making you think or making any sort of clever commentary, that they were just interested in feeding you or feeding the audience whatever is already socially acceptable. And this kind of attitude continues throughout the whole movie. There's an inconsistency. Some ideas, they're very loud and aggressive and up in your face about it, and others, they're very subtle and they're easy to miss. And coincidentally, the loudest, most aggressive feminist ideas in the Barbie movie are things that are well accepted within not just the feminist community, but generally the rest of American society. And the ideas that were very subtle, like just to name a few examples, the comment about the Kens not having where to live, how the Barbies treated the weird Barbie, or the dynamics between America and her daughter, all of those were either brushed to the side or even hardly acknowledged. And look, that would have been fine, because the problem isn't that the Barbie movie needed to be more woke. The problem I have with it is the marketing around it. The fact that the director and a lot of the cast have been going around hyping it up as this movie that's like feminist and it's innovative and it wants to bring light to the discrimination that women face. In fact, in an interview, they were asking Greta Gerwig, the director, if the Barbie movie was going to be a feminist movie. And she said, and I quote, "It most certainly is a feminist film, but it's feminist in a way that includes everyone. It's a rising tide lifts all boats version of it," end quote. And I find that very hard to believe when she spent the whole movie shying away from intersectionality, from radical feminist ideas, and from just overall the very awkward parts of sexism and womanhood. Not only that, but this isn't Greta's first film. If you've seen some of her other movies, such as Lady Bird, you know that she is capable of tackling complicated issues and relationships, and doing so in a way where both sides of the argument are presented, where all characters have their flaws and their qualities exposed. So all of this together just makes me feel like this message was not genuine at all. Like this whole time, all they wanted was to make a movie that was going to appeal and appease the majority of the population without actually stirring the pot, because they knew that if they did something new, that if they added something to these ideas that have existed for a while, that they probably wouldn't have gotten the commercial success that they expected from this movie. Before I give my criticisms, I want to give a little bit of context. I was reading online that apparently the Barbie movie was supposed to take place back in 2009, which is more than 10 years ago. But I guess at that time there were issues with Mattel, so the idea sat around for a while. And throughout all of this time, it has essentially been tossed around to different directors, different writers, and has included different actors. I mean, all in all, there's been like at least 5 writers that have taken their go at the script, different directions about what they wanted the message and the plot to be, and even different lead actresses to play Barbie. At some point it was supposed to be Amy Schumer and then Anne Hathaway, until eventually it got to Margot Robbie. And then I think Greta herself said that she was writing this movie during the pandemic and she didn't even know if it was going to get produced. Also, I forgot to mention, Greta did not write the script by herself. She actually co-wrote it with Noah B. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but the reason why I'm not focusing on him is because from what I've read, it seems like Greta was the main writer, and she's also been the one that's been public, that's been going to the interviews and so on and so forth, while Noah B has kind of just stayed silent and like taken like the backseat to all of this. I mean, at some point, I don't really know when, I couldn't figure it out, but at some point the script was like 147 pages long, which is equivalent to a lot of Quentin Tarantino's scripts. So yeah, overall, the history of this film is a mess, and I think the final product really reflects that. Anywho, in my mind, this movie can be divided into 2 sections. The first one being from the beginning all the way until Barbie and Ken decide to go to the real world, and then the second half, everything that happens afterwards all the way until the end. Now, in my opinion, the first half is great. It's consistent, funny, entertaining. It does a very good job at introducing us to a lot of the characters, introducing us to Barbie, her world, her day-to-day, how she feels about herself and how she interacts with the people around her. It also does a good job at setting up the problem. But then the second half just crashed and burned like almost immediately, because this is the part where the movie tries to go in a lot of different directions, following a lot of different characters and a lot of different subplots, and then rushes to solve all of them towards the end. And this might be a result of all of the pages that got scrapped from the script, because the movie as it is ended up being an hour and 54 minutes long, if I'm not wrong. So maybe if they would have kept the original script, it would have ended up being as long as Endgame, who knows. Regardless though, I feel like if they really did end up cutting content, then they should have ended up scrapping some of the characters as well. Because the thing is, when you have a movie, it's not just about presenting the problems and then solving them. You have to let your audience really get to know these characters so that we grow attached to them, so that we care about what happens to them and their development, their growth. Otherwise, whatever they go through ends up meaning nothing, and that's what happened in the Barbie movie, at least for me. For example, I really couldn't tell you what Will Ferrell's role is in all of this. At first, while watching the movie, I thought that he was supposed to be the main villain, but then the movie kind of kept going and he was just the CEO of Mattel and nothing more. And now that I've had time to process the movie, obviously I can understand that they put him in there so that they could criticize Mattel as a company. But even then, the message fell short because his screen time was very small. So everything that they did with his character, the jokes, the dialogue, in the grand scheme of things ended up being super forgettable and not effective. Same with America and her daughter. Like, I obviously know that we're supposed to root for them and we're supposed to feel happy when they heal their mother and daughter relationship and grow as individual characters. But honestly, I didn't feel anything, and that's not because, oh, I'm so edgy, but it's just that the movie didn't give us time. Like, you introduced them 15 minutes ago. How am I supposed to care? To be completely honest, I don't even remember the characters' names. I had to search them up, which is why I just keep referring to them for their real names. So keeping all of these characters ended up being a lose-lose situation because these characters didn't get the screen time that they deserved, and the few scenes that they did get took away time from Barbie and Ken and the main plot, which ended up messing with the movie's pacing. And that's why when I was sitting in the theater watching the movie, there were some scenes where I was just thinking like, okay, I get it, let's move on, because there's other stories that I want to see, there's other characters that I want to know more about. And then there were parts where I was like, so that's it? That's all you're gonna tell us? That's all you're gonna give us? And it's obvious why they didn't scrap a lot of these characters, because they needed those cameos for marketing. That's why they hired a bunch of A-list celebrities to play minor roles. But I feel pretty confident that there were ways that they could still keep those cameos without it affecting the overall storyline. Okay. So I know that I've shat on the Barbie movie a lot already, and to be honest, I'm gonna shit on it even more right now, but not everything is bad. To be fair, it's not the worst movie ever made. There's other movies that could definitely take that title, and I can see why there's people out there that loved it. For example, the Barbie movie was very visually stunning. I mean, the costumes were just out of this world. The designer definitely did her homework. And the set was just spectacular. Like, honestly, that's probably where all of the financing went into. But I'm kidding. For me, though, it was just very disappointing. I just have a hard time understanding how a film that had all of these resources ended up being worse than some indie movies I've seen. This film had the funding, it had the support from powerhouses like Warner Brothers. It had writers and producers that were experienced and have impressive resumes. They were able to pull A-list celebrities to act in the movie. And the whole story was based on a product that has been around for decades. I mean, Barbie has a cult following. So how do you have all that and end up delivering so little? How do you have all that and end up with a movie that relies on cameos, that has weird pacing, no sense of direction, and a disjointed storyline? I don't know. And while I do believe that if Greta had been allowed to make the original script, a lot of these problems would decrease, if not even disappear, it still doesn't change the fact that this is what we got and that she was okay with putting this out there. And now to her and to Mattel and to Warner Brothers, maybe like that's okay because they did end up achieving a commercial success. It was a very profitable movie, but I'm not so sure about the reviews. If you Google the Barbie movie, you'll notice that it has an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.8 out of 10 in IMDb, which are not bad numbers at all. However, I don't feel that these numbers are genuine. When the movie first came out, I remember that anyone who had anything bad to say about the Barbie movie was just criticized. They were labeled sexist, essentially. And while I do agree that a lot of those criticisms did come from people who get offended by the color pink, a lot of them were valid. And if the public had been more receptive to constructive criticism, I don't think that the film would have the reviews that it has right now. They would definitely be leaning towards the negative side. And I'm not the most impartial person, right? Because I obviously didn't like it. But I'm also saying it because it's only been a year since the release of the movie, and I've already seen a lot of people slowly coming out to say that they didn't enjoy it as much. And I only see this snowball getting bigger because, aside from all of the issues that I've already mentioned, another big problem with this movie is its humor and its dialogue. It is extremely dated. Listen, I'm a millennial. I was born in 1998. I love skinny jeans. But even to me, it was giving millennial who says bussin'. The social political commentary sounded like it would have been innovative in the early 2000s. And the humor relied a lot on current slang and pop culture. And I'm not saying that they needed to play Subway Surfers in the middle of the screen. I'm just saying that there's ways that they could have appealed to that nostalgia and to that age group in much funnier, clever ways. That's the main reason why I feel like this movie is not going to age well. I'm a little scared to say this, but I literally have nothing to lose. Like, I have no subscribers, so I'm just gonna say it. The Barbie movie only did well because it came out at a time when being a feminist was cool. And I understand that a lot of us wanted this movie to do good. I wanted this movie to do good because I love Barbie. It had also been a long time since a movie that was directed and written by a woman and had a majority female cast had come out. So I get why this was supposed to be like a big win, but we're not doing any favors to feminism and to activism in general by making excuses for something that was realistically very average. In fact, it's even more than that. We're not doing the film industry any favors by continuing to reward mediocrity. This is why year after year we keep getting mid after mid movies, because we keep telling these film studios, these producers, these writers that they can throw out any garbage, and as long as they throw some recognizable faces and names on that screen and they make them dance to the tune of a current pop singer, that will just throw our money at them. But yeah, I do believe that as time passes by and we get more films, that the Barbie movie's gonna start to lose a lot of its fan base. It would be very interesting to see that shift and hear from people that maybe loved the movie when it first came out, but now feel very different. Pero pues, ¿quién soy yo para juzgar? I'm just some random dumbass on the internet with access to a microphone and Wi-Fi, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. And if by some sort of miracle you came across this video, well, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I hope you enjoyed it. But that's all for today, so bye!